project is called Safhava, which is Urdu for clean air, and it's a project involving a number of community groups around the eastern area, largely coordinated by RAID, which is Residents Against Dirty Energy. It's been around for a few years, and the Council of Bristol Mosques. We are initially putting in 20 sites across the eastern area that will monitor particulate air pollution and nitrogen dioxide. We're hoping to add in traffic counting and a few other sensors. The data we are generating is open source and available to everybody to use, and we're hoping to create a wealth of data that local people can start to look at for their own benefit and to get an understanding of what's happening on their streets. Local people in Easton often don't even get a look into that. By giving them data, they will be able to walk into the conversation and say, hey, we've got the data. Started 5 years ago when we started monitoring PM 2.5 and progressively built up the number of sensors across the city. I think the biggest challenge in terms of collecting the data is convincing people that the sensor we want to put into their home is something that they can have as much control over as I have. In fact, they've got more, because they can just turn it off. Once you get past that, once you start to show how the graph changes quite quickly by doing something like setting fire to a piece of cardboard next to it, you then change and you start to see that. In terms of using the data, the problem is that you're often going against the established kind of spoken word. I hope the project will grow. I hope that the young people that we get involved in looking at the data will start to ask more and more questions. Obviously, there's a real need to improve people's educational opportunities around here. One way in doing that is running STEM classes. We tackle the worst problem first, and then if there's the resources left, we'll tackle the better problem. So the priority has to be Eastern Way, where the levels of nitrogen dioxide are already exceeding the legal limits. It has to be where you've got the concentration of deprivation, where you've got the concentration of poor health, etc. And that is a thing that we're now actively talking to a number of neighbourhood planning groups and other people about how we make that a reality, using the data we're generating to get people to understand the problem.
We're an arts and tech organisation. A focus of ours is inclusion. So we support people who are at risk of digital or social exclusion to become active citizens and to also have equal access to all the opportunities that's being offered in Bristol. The approach we use is a socially engaged arts practice as well as participatory design practices. The project. So it was, we identified and framed an issue which appeared to be air quality in the areas of Easton and Lawrence Hill and Ashley. So this was done through workshops in the community, and then this issue came up through, like many people came up with that as an issue that they wanted to tackle. So then secondly, we started with a design and deployment phase. So this is where we developed sensors. What we've done with the data that we then collected from this is we've captured it onto a data Unity platform, and this was made available as an open source data for the community and for people in Bristol. So we've also created a website called bristolairquality.co.uk, where we've collated all the sensors that we've installed as well as any other sensors in Bristol into one place. And something we've done as well with our communities was making sense of data sessions afterwards, where we had workshops and we explained what these figures and numbers actually meant. And in some of the groups, we also did physical data sessions where people could have a data diary to start seeing, how the weather might impact on it or what was actually happening in real life using multitude of sensors to support this data that we've had. I mean, there's many complex issues around digital exclusion, but one of the main barriers is still security. And access essentially is, people want to know where their data is going and who owns it and that stuff. So it's really important that we're open and transparent about it, and also to put it in the hands of the commons. There's education that needs to be brought with that. Wow, it is amazing how easy it is nowadays, and with all the resources out there. I think the biggest part in the success of our work and this project is the partnership working. We've been lucky to work with UE as well as Bristol University as partners, where we can get the tech side of data onto platforms and set up networks where it can be available freely and open. The community side of it, it's the importance of developing from the ground up. It's not imposing ideas on people. I think that's key, because then it just becomes something that's just going to fall off.
Secure is an Horizon 2020 project, and is related to the application of exploitation, rather, of the Cure Copernicus services to the domain of sustainable and resilient urbanization. It's a joint effort of 11 organizations and SMEs from several European countries. And we combine products from 4 Copernicus core services, which is the land service, the atmospheric service, the climate service, and the emergency service. And we introduce new ideas how to develop applications across these core services in the domains of climate change adaptation and mitigation, healthy cities and social environments, and energy and economy. And because urban environment is multidimensional, so we need information for more than one Copernicus core service, and we need also disaggregated information at neighborhood scale. And this information is not provided yet from the Copernicus core services. So we exploit together Copernicus core services with third-party data and observations and modeling to build these cross-cutting applications. And the second pillar is that we exploit the European cloud, the DIAS. But our vision is to become a focused and evidence-based toolkit for assisting the current and future policy making in the field. So Cure is the first project which tries to bring together all urban resilience related services from the Copernicus and trusted entities. So Thurs has a unique opportunity to become, or at least to contribute to the Copernicus Urban Development Hub. This is a knowledge hub, can be used by the users and urban planners and scientific community and all that can be benefit from the exploitation of Copernicus in the domain of urban resilience. Of course, the main challenge is the lockdown, and we have these days because of the pandemic, and has not enabled us to have face-to-face meetings and organize our user workshops, and, for example, to have a demonstration event organized, which was planned for the beginning of July. So we have postponed it because we don't like to organize it in virtual, and we prefer to have an in-person meeting, having all planners and users from different cities interacting physically. Okay, my first advice is that since the urban environment is multidimensional, to include scientists from different disciplines. So this is a multidisciplinary task, and you need also to combine the environmental dimensions and the social dimension, economic dimensions, because urban sustainability is something which is the umbrella of all of this. And my second advice is to try to involve the local communities and the planners in the project from the beginning, and to provide application which is tailored for the user needs.
Our project is We Count. So We Count is a European project that has got 5 cities involved across Europe. A simple device called a telram, which means abacus. And it's fixed on the window of someone's house, so just like the ones behind us with a view of the road. And what that traffic sensor does is it takes the data and records every type of transport, from heavy vehicles to pedestrians, cyclists and cars. The citizens are able to gather that data over a long period of time to find out averages of speed, peaks of traffic flows, and then they can use that to act as evidence, going to local MPs and lobbying them with that evidence to say, we want to reduce speeds, for example. So we've got 2 incidences, one in Madrid and one in Leuven, where both cities have successfully reduced the speeds onto streets in their areas. We're even working with schools, so schools are then going to have their own telrams, be able to count their own traffic and maybe take action about creating a safer street for them to get from home to where they need to be, which is their school every day. The sensor is low cost, so it is off the shelf for about £80, which is great in terms of accessibility, that most people can pick it up. However, it means that it's limited on what it can do. So often you might get overcounting or undercounting of traffic, maybe the speeds look a little bit odd at times. So that's been one of the big challenges. And also with the fact that we've been working online, we've had to deal with obviously the technology barrier of just getting people set up with a telram when we can't go to their homes and help support them get them set up. Also, using technology itself can create a barrier for certain groups who may not have access to, say, a computer or Wi-Fi. However, we are working to overcome this with targeted engagements. So we're developing these freely available resources, which will be available after the project ends, on both our website, which is we-count.net, but also on a few other websites for educators across Europe to use. And with the schools that we're working with who have the telrams, they can use those telrams indefinitely. All of those that have a telram and want to continue to use them can do so, keep adding to their data set and to then influence decision makers. Even broader than that, beyond the scope of our project, I would really like to see more citizen science within cities in terms of using low-cost sensors, in terms of them getting to just be more like a scientist in their day-to-day, kind of being more aware of their environment, sensing their environment, and seeing whether they can build their own evidence base to influence change. In terms of researchers, I think it's really great to kind of push beyond the comfort zone. If you're not used to doing kind of citizen science projects and you want to communicate your project more widely, so if you're working in transport or even if it's about housing or whatever it may be, how can you involve citizens in your work and how can data help to facilitate that? So for example, using a sensor for them to monitor their environment. There's a really great example from another project called Replicate in Europe that has been using low-cost technology within homes for citizens to understand how they can reduce their carbon emissions, for example. So these kind of examples I'd really recommend for scientists to look into, to widen the reach of science, to get their message out there more, but for citizens themselves to be part of this big picture to move towards sustainable development, essentially. So I think that's my kind of big take home for researchers. And then if you can get politicians and decision makers involved from the outset, that will really help to influence the longevity of the project and also to create that change where it needs to happen.
Well, my project is Smarticipate by the European Commission, Horizon 2020. And we have been doing this with several partners. One of them was also the University of the West of England. And it was about the possibility of what can we do with open government data and what can be done to help citizens, but also city administrations to in their planning processes, to have also more transparency in the planning process and to let citizens know about the doings of the city. Then leading to the creation of a Smarticipate platform that is already available to the public, where we can create certain topics, planning topics for cities, and citizens can place proposals on maps, and they get information about if a proposal is possible or not, and can get into contact with the administration. And in the end, this should be possible for administrations and also for citizens to discuss certain problems and challenges in their neighborhoods. The role of the data in the Smarticipate project is that it's delivering the information about planning and also the rules behind the planning in the cities. And this data can then be analyzed according to certain rules that are written down and established in the backend of the server. And the server is then applying those rules to the proposals of the citizens, so they can place a point or a line or a polygon according to what you would try to achieve with them. And then this system is then querying the data, the open government data from the city, and you get back information about the possibility of the proposal that you are doing. The whole idea is actually based on open government data and what you can do with it. And we try to make it more accessible through this Smarticipate platform. To have a more fine-grained information about the surroundings, it's about knowing the rules, but then also breaking them. It should give the neighborhoods the possibility to know why certain things are maybe not possible. Like, for example, this platform is helping them to know maybe things that they didn't know for years and then reach out to the city administration and say, well, but if we do it like this or that, would this be a possibility? Or if they understand what the problem or the challenge is, then they could reach out to their fellow citizens in the neighborhood, and maybe they can join forces, and then it should help people understand in a transparent way why this planning is done in that way, but then also to get into the discussion with the planners and the city administration. And not all cities already have open government data. Some people or some cities have open government data portals, so that's from the technical perspective. You need to have some endpoints, as it's called in the technical terms, where you have the possibility to connect your platform to and read the data in a machine-readable way. The future of the Smarticipate project is we have created a development version of the platform, which is available on the internet. The coordinator of the project, they took over the idea of the Smarticipate platform and try to bring it to the next level, or they are still trying to do this, and to implement the missing bits and pieces that have not been able to be implemented within the project. So there is then also a business plan for the Smarticipate platform, which will be based on a licensing schema where cities can use either a cloud-based system or an on-premise software, so to speak, to have their citizens work with the Smarticipate platform. So that's already ongoing, and that's the future, and we are looking forward to work with cities in the future with the Smarticipate platform.
My project is Replicate, which is a 5-year research and development smart city flagship project with a focus on energy, mobility, and ICT solutions. It began in 2016 and was co-designed with citizens in collaboration with 38 partners across Europe. Our vision was to improve the quality of life for citizens by demonstrating how innovative technologies could be used to co-create smart city services with citizens and prove the optimal process for replicating success within and across cities. As a research and development project, data plays a key role in evaluating the success of the interventions and future scale-up. For 2 years, we deployed several energy, mobility, and ICT interventions for which data was gathered and analyzed. This has provided an opportunity to trial solutions on a smaller scale to see what works and, just as importantly, what doesn't. Now, from the lessons learned, we can explore the opportunities to accelerate scale-up or replication of the interventions, having already overcome the initial difficulties or barriers. Replicate aims to increase the quality of life for citizens and local neighborhoods, introducing integrated solutions through a co-creative vision involving citizens and stakeholders to tackle challenges in the local areas. We tested several innovative business models, such as e-bikes and e-vehicles, in the areas of Ashley, Easton and Lawrence Hill, where citizens were not only benefited by using the technology itself, but also provided data around the transport patterns for the local authority and companies. This information has created awareness and allowed the community to change their behaviors to more sustainable modes of travel, as well as drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve health in the community, whilst enabling us to accelerate the deployment of innovative technologies. One of our biggest challenges was around the monitoring process. It was initially planned that partners would gather data for 2 years from the point of deploying the interventions, so the information could be collated and evaluated by some project partners. However, these expectations were not fulfilled, as many interventions went under some kind of amendment or deviation from the original plan, which had an impact on the monitoring process. This challenged the expectations due to unforeseen changes to deployment, which affected some methods of data capture which were no longer viable and had to be rethought. It was also quite challenging to collect data and analyze datasets that came from different sources. We are ensuring that the learning and the outcomes of the project provide a valuable legacy for the future smart city development. The project has contributed to delivering against Bristol's smart city strategy, which aligns to the One City plan that sets out Bristol's vision for the city up to 2050. Through the solutions deployed in the project, we have strengthened our knowledge of what we require as a city in the future, roll out of future smart solutions at scale, such as the need to deliver the digital foundations to be effective in researching all our citizens, ensuring that the technologies we use deliver public value and are ethical, responsible, inclusive, and transparent. We have engaged citizens from an early stage to co-create solutions that are wanted, needed, and not driven by technology. This has enabled the project to take citizens on the journey to understand how the data is being used and why it is important to collect information. It has shown citizens how they can utilize data to make more informed decisions about the way they live and move in the city. Also, Bristol City Council's Open Data Platform has been promoted, and we have organized several hackathons explaining why open source datasets are important, how can citizens make a difference by sharing information, and how it can be used to create apps and startups. So I could say that citizens are willing to be part of these trials, but more work around awareness is required, and these hackathons help building trust.
Hello, my name is Matthew Studley and I work at the BRL at the University of the West of England, where I'm leading the CyROC project. Now, the CyROC project exists in order to promote benchmarking of robots through competition, and as part of this we organise a series of events called the European Robotics League. Now, within the CyROC project we've extended this so that we have big international smart city competitions where robots and teams go to smart cities, demonstrate their robots in a variety of realistic and relatable tasks, so that we can show what the state of the art in robotics is to the citizens, and hopefully to foster some sort of debate about what sort of future do we want and how can people make up their minds about what they want from robotic technology. So as part of this, the local community is involved both as spectators to watch the robotic competitions, but also more directly as we interact with them to find out their opinions. We do that through a variety of different mechanisms. So, for example, we might have Meet the Experts events or public fora, and of course people simply watch the robots and ask questions about them. Now, the sorts of data that participants in the competition collect vary, and really there's two sorts of data that we've been collecting. One is the data associated with the robots and their benchmarking, and this would typically be data about how long a robot took to perform a task or how successfully it performed the task. And we might also gather some data from the robot itself as well. And the other sort of data is data about the public engagement. So, as I mentioned before, we've gathered data from questionnaires as we ask people their opinion of the robots and what sort of things they want robots to do or not to do in their city. Our intention is that we can use this to help improve lives, again, in two ways. One, through improving the process of robotic development through benchmarking, but secondly also by opening this discourse about what people want from robots, because we're going to have robots working among us quite quickly. Robots are leaving factory production lines and they are starting to come into our space, and the place where we will most often meet them is within cities, and cities are themselves becoming somewhat like robots because they have sensors and processing. So this question of how robots fit into smart cities and what services they offer is going to become really important, and it's important that we get this right. We're not aware that the local community had any concerns over local data collection in our project, and we didn't face any particular challenges in terms of collecting and using data. All of our processes, and in particular the questionnaire where we were directly interacting with the public, went through the normal university research ethics procedures. Now, in the future, we're going to have another Smart City competition. So our first one was in Milton Keynes in 2019. Our second one is in Bologna in September this year. As you can imagine, this has proved quite a challenge to organise, particularly given the difficulties that we have in international travel. And beyond that, we hope that we'll have other competitions in the future as we continue with the CyROC brand beyond the end of the project. Advice that I might give to other individuals or organisations setting up a project that uses data aimed at improving the lives of communities? Well, I think it would be to engage openly in discourse. Don't assume you know what people want. Gather data and involve stakeholders, a variety of stakeholders, at every step of the way. Thank you.